You may have noticed something. Not a crisis, not yet, just a feeling. Like you're living a life that doesn't quite belong to you. Most people dismiss it. They keep moving, they keep climbing, they keep performing. But what if that feeling is not a warning? What if it's an awakening? Carl Jung, one of the deepest observers of the human soul, noticed something in his patients that most therapists miss. He saw people who had everything: good jobs, stable families, social respect. Yet they felt empty. Not from failure, from success. They were successful at living someone else's life. Think about your own day. How many decisions did you make because they felt right to you? And how many did you make because you knew they would be accepted? Most people never ask this question. But what happens when you finally do? What happens when you stop measuring yourself against the world's eyes and start listening to something deeper? That's what this conversation is about. Not rebellion, not isolation. A quiet return to the only compass that ever truly mattered: yourself. And if that word, yourself, feels both familiar and foreign right now, you're exactly where this begins. Stay with this. There's a stage in human life that almost everyone passes through, yet few people recognize how dangerous it becomes. It starts innocently. A compliment lifts your entire day. A single look of disapproval makes you question everything. You begin to feel like your worth is written in other people's faces. This isn't weakness. It's actually how the human nervous system was built to survive. We evolved in tribes, in groups. Belonging meant safety. Rejection meant death. So your brain learned early: watch what others think, measure yourself through their eyes. It kept you alive, but it also locked you in a prison. I know a woman named Sarah. She works in marketing in New York. By every measure, she's successful. She gets promoted, colleagues praise her work, her boss calls her indispensable. But here's what she told me in a quiet moment: I don't know who I am anymore. Not because she's broken, but because every decision she makes first gets filtered through a question: will they approve? The promotion she took, she didn't want it, but it looked good. The apartment she rented, not her style, but it impressed her friends. The goals she set, not her dreams, but they matched what successful people do. And here's the subtle part. She's not unhappy because she's failing. She's unhappy because she's succeeding at the wrong game. Jung called this state living by the collective map. You're walking through a forest without a compass, so you follow the crowd. If everyone turns left, you turn left. Not because it's your direction, but because you have no other way of knowing where to go. And the cost of this isn't dramatic. It's not a breakdown. It's not a collapse. It's a slow, quiet exhaustion. A feeling that you're living a life that doesn't fully belong to you. That's the first whisper of the neglected self. Modern neuroscience has a term for this. It's called external regulation. When your emotional state depends entirely on outside feedback, your nervous system never rests. You're always waiting, always performing, always checking. So Buddhist monks understood this thousands of years ago. They called it the monkey mind, constantly jumping from branch to branch, looking everywhere for safety, except inside. But here's what Jung discovered that changed everything. There comes a moment in psychological life when a person begins to feel tired. Not tired from failure, tired from constantly measuring themselves by the world. And that moment is not a sign you're losing direction. It's a signal that it's time to turn back to yourself. So, if you've felt that tiredness, If you've sensed that you've been living through other people's eyes, that feeling is not a problem. It's the beginning of an awakening.
So here's the question that arrives next. Once you realize you've been living through other people's eyes, a very quiet question emerges. Who exactly has been living in my place all these years? And the answer is rarely what you expect. It's not other people controlling you. It's something far more intimate. Jung called it the persona. Not a flaw, not a sickness. A psychological structure you built so quietly, you forgot you built it at all. The persona is the social mask. You learn to wear it from childhood. At first, it helped. It helped you adapt. It helped you be accepted. It kept you safe in groups. The problem begins when you forget it's only a role and start believing it's who you actually are. There's a man I know. Let's call him David. He's a finance executive in Chicago. High salary, respectable, always says the right thing. His persona is flawless, professional, controlled, successful. But in a private moment, he admitted something. I don't know what I actually enjoy anymore. Every time he wants to do something different, something that breaks the image, his mind immediately floods with questions. Will they find this strange? Will they be disappointed? Will they judge me? His persona had become his prison. And here's the subtle cruelty of the persona. At first, it protects you. It says, if you're acceptable, you'll be safe. But over time, it shifts. The persona no longer protects you from the world. It protects the world from your true self. The ancient wisdom understood this. Epictetus, a slave who became one of the greatest philosophers, taught we have two roles: the role given to us by society and our authentic nature beneath it. The mistake is forgetting which is which. When you fully identify with the persona, something subtle shifts. You develop an addiction. Not to drugs, not to food, an addiction to recognition. You need praise to feel okay, positive feedback to believe you're right. Not because you're shallow, but because you've placed your entire sense of worth into the mask, rather than into yourself. Another example, fresh, vulnerable. I once knew a woman named Elena. She's a content creator in Los Angeles. Thousands of followers, picture-perfect life online, always knows what to say, what to post, what image to present. She's never made anyone uncomfortable. But she told me something that broke my heart. I've lived so long within the persona, I've lost the feeling of living authentically. Her anxiety didn't come from failure. It came from having no place left to take the mask off. Even alone, she was performing. Jung warned very clearly about this. He wrote, "The persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself as well as others think one is." When you live only through the persona, you begin to live for an image rather than for inner truth. And that's when the real erosion begins. Here's what most people don't see. The persona is not evil. It's not wrong. It was meant to be a tool, a useful costume to navigate the world. But Jung was clear about one thing. A tool is not meant to carry the weight of meaning. A mask is not meant to hold your soul. So here's what arrives when you begin to see this. how much of your day is you, and how much of it is the performance. How many of your choices come from inner truth, and how many come from the fear of being seen differently? Most people have never asked themselves this. But once you do, everything begins to shift. And that shift is what we explore next. Because loosening the persona creates something most people fear, which is actually the gateway to freedom.
Once you begin to loosen the persona, an old reflex immediately awakens. You look sideways. You observe whether others are moving faster, achieving more, living bigger. And very quickly, you fall into comparison without even realizing it. But here's what Jung saw that most people miss. Comparison is not simple jealousy. It's not just insecurity. It's something far deeper. It's a denial of your own individual path. It's saying your journey is invalid because it doesn't match theirs. I know a man named Marcus. He's 32, works in tech in San Francisco. For years, he felt behind his friends. They had promotions, stable families, houses, status. He kept changing direction, jobs, goals, cities. Every reunion left him feeling like a failure. Until one day, he was forced to stop. And he realized something profound. He had never been lost. He had simply been walking a different path. Slower in social terms, but deeper in inner terms. When you live in comparison, you're racing on a timeline that was never yours. You expend energy on speed when what you actually need is direction. And those are two completely different things. So here's what happens next. You've loosened the persona, you've stopped comparing yourself to others, yet the fear of being judged hasn't disappeared. A look, an ambiguous comment, silence, and suddenly you feel scrutinized. It doesn't make sense, but Jung knew exactly what was happening. He called it the shadow. Not darkness, not evil. The shadow is simply the parts of yourself you've denied, rejected, hidden away. The aspects you couldn't accept, so you pushed them underground. When a feeling or belief is too painful to accept, your mind doesn't eliminate it. It projects it outward, onto others. So you believe they're judging you, when really it's your own inner voice, the part of you that says you're not good enough. There was a woman named Priya. She worked in corporate communications in Boston. She was constantly worried her colleagues didn't respect her. Every question felt like doubt. Every piece of feedback felt like criticism. But when she looked deeper, she found a belief she'd never spoken aloud. I am not good enough. That belief had been living inside her since childhood. And because she couldn't accept it, she projected it outward. She made others carry her own self-doubt, until she finally turned inward and said, "This needs healing." And something strange happened. The outside world seemed less judgmental. Not because others changed, because the projection was withdrawn. She took back her own power. The world you fear often mirrors what you haven't dared to face within yourself. At this point in the journey, something unexpected happens. The noise in your mind begins to quiet. The constant checking, the performing, the waiting for reactions. And in that settling silence, you touch something familiar, something you've been avoiding. Solitude. But solitude is not what most people think it is. It's not loneliness, not abandonment, not failure. Jung saw it completely differently. He called it sacred space, where the soul can finally speak without being drowned out. Most people fear this silence, not because being alone is painful, but because of what surfaces when there's no one left to distract you. Avoided questions appear, unnamed sadness, inner conflicts. Things once covered by constant social life begin to demand attention. And that's terrifying for an unexamined mind. There's a woman named Jessica. She lives in Austin, always busy, always connected. When her job ended suddenly, she had nowhere to run. The first week alone was excruciating. But by week 3, something shifted. In the quiet, she heard what she'd been drowning out for years. Her own voice, what she actually wanted, who she actually was. The silence didn't create the truth. It only allowed that truth to be heard. Jung believed this is essential. You cannot integrate what you deny, and you cannot hear yourself while performing for others. Temporary withdrawal is not escape. It's a necessary condition for inner truth to emerge. When you can sit in silence without panic, when you can be alone without feeling lack, that's when the self begins to take its place. And that becomes your new compass. Now something profound begins to shift. You faced the persona, withdrawn from comparison, integrated the shadow, tasted solitude. And in that foundation, you build something no one sees. Jung called it inner discipline, not the discipline of force, not of proving, but discipline born from inner necessity. This is not about productivity hacks or self-improvement. This is about daily commitment to what is true for you. Even when no one watches, no one praises, no one understands. Jung wrote, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another." There is no universal recipe, only your rhythm. Imagine a tree with roots growing deep underground. The roots are invisible, unimpressive, yet they determine whether the tree survives the storm. Most people only feed the leaves, shape the canopy to look good, until the first storm arrives and the tree collapses. I know a man named James. He worked in finance in New York, fast pace, recognition driven. After burnout, he didn't rest completely or launch a dramatic plan. He simply began, very consistently, waking earlier, reading in silence, writing a few lines of reflection, focusing on one true task without telling anyone. No praise, no recognition, no one knew. But something changed. He was calmer, clearer, less swept by external pressure. Not better than others, more aligned with himself. Modern neuroscience confirms this. Intrinsic motivation is far more sustainable than external rewards. When action is driven by personal meaning, the nervous system maintains focus.
When action is driven by recognition, the brain quickly fatigues. This discipline is often lonely. It produces no impressive story, no applause. True growth is almost always silent. Not a breakthrough, a quiet accumulation. Each day, each small choice, each kept promise to yourself.
But here's the final threshold. You've built inner discipline. You've strengthened your roots. Yet you still feel it. A subtle movement. A wish to be acknowledged, to be seen, to receive confirmation you're on the right path. And you wonder, have I failed? But Jung knew this was not failure. This was the next stage. When the ego is immature, it needs the world to know it exists. Praise, attention, positive feedback. These are mirrors through which the ego takes shape. But Jung believed the ego is not meant to remain there. As the ego matures, it no longer needs the world to tell it it's okay. It stands on a different foundation. Inner unity. Value no longer comes from recognition or status or comparison. It comes from a deep inner sense that what you live, think, and do are not in conflict. They're aligned. This is what Jung meant by withdrawing energy from the world. Not turning away, not becoming cold, but stopping the use of others as your mirror for worth. Psychic energy no longer flows outward, waiting to return as praise. It seeps inward, nourishing the roots. And paradoxically, the more deeply you focus on yourself, the more steadily you're present in life. And so we arrive at the end. Or perhaps the beginning. Because what started as a crisis has become a return. A very quiet return. From living outside yourself to living inside yourself. You no longer need the world to confirm who you are. You no longer need others' gazes as proof of your value. You begin to stand on a different foundation. Inner coherence. Alignment with what is moving most deeply within you. And here's the paradox Jung spent his life exploring. The moment you stop seeking your place in the world no longer has the power to shake you. Not because you've become cold or indifferent, but because you finally come home to yourself. From that point, life doesn't necessarily become easier, but it becomes truer. You no longer have to live fast to keep up with anyone. Live correctly to be accepted. Live big to be seen. You only need to live in alignment with what is moving most deeply within you. And perhaps that's the greatest irony of all. The people who focus only on themselves are often the ones who show up most fully for others. Not because they're performing, not because they're seeking approval, but because they're finally present. Solid. Rooted. Awake. So the real question isn't whether you should focus on yourself. The question is, how long will you wait to begin? How many more days will you live through other people's eyes? How many more moments will you defer your own awakening?
if something in this conversation has touched you, if you felt that familiar tiredness of living for the world, then the invitation is here. Not to rebel, not to isolate, simply to turn inward, to listen, to remember that the compass you've been searching for everywhere else has been waiting inside you all along, right here, right now. Once you notice this, you can never unsee it. And that is where the real transformation begins.